Hey guys, it's John. In this video, I want to run through a strategy that I use with one of my clients to take them from $1,100 a month to $13,000 a month in 9 weeks. So for anyone who's struggling with knowing what to post or not getting enough leads into their business, by the end of this video, you're going to get some takeaways that you can put into content, knowing what to post, what to talk about, how to talk about it, and have a little bit more of a strategy in place to drive inquiries. I know a lot of coaches struggle with this. They struggle with getting leads or people to inquire into their business. And this was the perfect example of what I did with one of my clients to solve that problem. Because the thing is, you need the strategy to drive them past the point of not just following, because his account grew from 1,200 followers to 52,000 followers, but more importantly, it grew with the right people. And that's probably the first point. We'll get straight into it because I was very pedantic with Luke on analyzing who to help. We isolated one key person and we really delved into the thoughts, and we made a big departure away from just sharing tips and focused on what were they thinking about. It is worthless you spending your time and effort creating content on problems or topics no one cares about. You've got to understand where the pain is in your market. You have to know what people want to solve and what they're interested in. And like everything else is worthless. This strategy is pointless if it's not built off problems or topics or talking points that people want to know. And that was the success. That was core. We nailed the problem because Luke started to cover talking points that his market was starving for. They were so eager to find out more information about it. And the reason I'm not saying the topic out loud is because as soon as I say it, the niche will be interrupted and everyone else will just replicate it off surface level. But he spent 3 years posting content intermittently without getting that much traction. And it's only when we sit and drill down what's talking point and what issues that one person who wants to attract, what were they thinking about? What were they fixating upon? And once we drew a list, we scripted 15 videos and he went in to do a batch recording session and he got 15 reels done in a go. There's a huge problem I see with a lot of coaches where they're trying to talk and cover too many different things. If you're covering fat loss, covering muscle building as well, detracts from it. Yes, you have the ability to help other people, but you need to talk about the problem at the infancy, because what you want to do is you want to attract people by talking about what they are thinking about. It's not what you think the problem is. It's not what they need. It's what they want. It's what they are thinking about. It's what they want to know. You're not serving your colleagues. So many coaches try and impress their colleagues and just talk about the terminology, the topics, the minutiae, that they just want to look good academically or they want to look smart. No one cares. Who is paying you money? What language and what problems and what things are the person you want to help at the beginning of the process, the beginning of their journey, the infancy, what are they thinking about? And that's what we nailed, because you could look at it like this. If you're boiling a kettle, if you keep taking the water off the heat, it never boils. And in fact, it takes more energy to raise it by 1 degree each time. You know, if you're taking it from 4 degrees to 10 degrees, that takes less energy than taking it from 90 degrees to 100 degrees. So the point is, if you cover different topics, you keep taking it off the heat. You need to stick to one core problem or key core interest, niching down to one thing, not a demographic, but a problem. You don't niche down demographic, you niche down situational problems. Once you stay consistent in your content on that problem, what you're doing is you're maintaining the heat long enough on that water to make it boil. In this example, you're maintaining interest, and it's like a catherine wheel. People are going round it in this flywheel, spinning round, and the more consistent you are, the faster they spin round to the point where they want to inquire. If you go into the description, I'll put a free advice form. Fill out, give me some context of the details of like what your current position, what you're trying to achieve, maybe some context on who you want to help. And I will help you with this like I did with Luke, because it does sometimes take two people to kind of go backwards and forwards and unlock a few ideas that we have in our heads to really dig into like core. That's the topic. And to be honest, I work with 500 plus fitness coaches now. I know what most markets are kind of focused on. And it could just be like finding your edge, your solution to that problem, and bang, that's your strategy, like Luke found. So the key point was we planned the content, scripted it based on that core interest we isolated. And what we found is that started to get traction, and the top, we normally get sort of 1 to 2 great performing bits of content from the batch, and we actually put an ad budget behind it, because one thing's pop. Boosting's okay, it's not as good as like ad manager, but you can boost a post if it's already got a great organic signal, because that just ignites and increases more exposure. And we knew that we were attracting the right people into his audience, and we were averaging good inquiries on a weekly basis at that point, so we knew that we would get this back very quickly. It saves us time having to kind of DM or do anything. You just reinvest some of the income that we got from the clients coming on board into more exposure, once we knew that the top performers were leading to inquiries, because we could track on the inquiry form we have, why do you want to work with me specifically, and we got some accurate data to kind of feed back into specific bits of content. So we can make informed decisions, and we could reinvest for more exposure to kind of feed back and get more inquiries off the back of it. So the key was isolating the problem and being consistent on one thing. And then once we had that, we built that into a strategy, which a lot of people probably don't consider. Because again, you know, if we just stopped here, we'd probably get followers, but we wouldn't get a huge abundance of inquiries, because again, this takes strategy. Only 3% of the market ready to buy, 17 actively researching, 20% problem aware, 60% problem unaware. So the content was split, and this is where his Instagram profile became, well, we looked at the funnel, so to speak, and we looked to streamline and drive people down. So obviously covering problems, mainly on Reels, that attracted people with the problems his service is designed to solve. Articulating the solution within posts, a little bit more internally based, where he provided his angle, shared it on stories, and then sharing client case studies on stories. Again, stories, this is more remarketing. This is outside the audience, but again, this is attracting and pulling people in. The people probably potentially problem unaware or like curious. And then off the back of that, seeing the solution, they made them aware. They started to kind of want to go from problem aware to actively researching. The big mechanism between these 2 points is pain and time, because the difference between somebody who's problem aware and actively researching is, have they seen enough people succeed and overtake them? It's that pain of comparison and other people moving forwards. There might be life events that happen to them, for example, coming back from a holiday and seeing themselves from the side and going, shit, that looks awful. So some of it's in your control, some of it's not, but what is in your control is showing other people succeeding, creating that pain of comparison, fear of missing out. So we did that to the followers who kind of grew on board, and then it was like simple call to actions with a form, and then we went through a qualifying process, and we went then to onboard people. This was quite formulating and systematic. Again, the work we did here made this easy here at this point with the qualifying and the onboarding. And then from my perspective, what we did is we looked to kind of, when we qualified, we had 2 camps. We converted clients off going through this process, where we kind of naturally, the content and the stories, we started to kind of automatically funnel people in, so they would inquire. But the big thing for us is we created a framework of service which is based around 6 months, and we created projections, personalized projections for each client that came on board. That way that, you know, I know for a fact that if you want to grow a coaching business, you need to be able to retain clients. You can't grow it fighting churn. And if your churn is above 2 clients a month, regardless if you have 50 plus clients, that's a potential issue. There will always be some, but if you're getting clients drop off within 12 weeks, that's a serious problem. That is a serious problem. Psychological change and rewiring in the brain to create long-term habits, it takes 18 months. From my perspective, I know if we aim for at least 6 months, people are more likely to stay for 12 months, because they realize it's an ongoing process, plus you build a relationship and habits are set and they're in their way. So my huge focus with Luke was getting a process in place. We incentivized an offer for 6 months. We didn't do contracts ever, but we incentivized them to stay, but more so we kind of showed a framework of service, and we showed the horizon, and we had a 6-month goal and a 2-year goal for each client that came on board, which made them look ahead and made most stay. Because that way, if we wanted to maintain 10K a month, we only need to work with 87 clients if they stay for 8 months. If they stay for 12 weeks, however, and we didn't do this, we'd have to work with almost 300. So again, when we got people coming through and we attracted the right people and they had them signing up, we made sure that they would have the right expectation, and then we'd engineer a process where they want to stay. And a lot of it is sometimes it's expectations, it's pointing out the difference, and it's communication skill and your ability to coach. There's loads of different aspects, but a lot of it's psychological, a lot of it is frameworks, and then some of it is obviously the coaching ability, but there's layers to this. And with Luke, a lot of it was creating the framework and the horizon from the get-go. But there were some in this audience that we grew that weren't at this position and they didn't pass qualifying. So with those, we created a free resource where people can still be helped, and then we could retain them and build them an automatic nurturing list. And this is where we start to kind of increase points of contact and move them from short form attention into long form relationship building. That was semi-automatic because we did it with email. The fact that we gave out something for free and the quality of that free resource was really good. So it actually created a disproportionate effect of people actually being impressed, and the resource itself furthered the relationship. The automatic emails, which we obviously once we crafted and sent them out, they started to warm people up and actually got them into the habit of reading more and getting more context and getting more information from the coach, rather than competing with all these other bits of social media content that was flying up. But what we found is, we provided multiple context, and then that just provided more exposure. They saw the content, they saw the proof. In time, the funnel would drive them down, but this accelerated it where we had multiple call to actions to kind of bring them back to the onboarding process off the back of that. And it was just a question of, well, how many people are coming through each week into this pot? And then how many people are we recycling into this pot? And then what is the conversion? And when we measure the open rates and we measure the click-through rates, we then know if it's good, if it's bad, then we can start to kind of improve and refine. But the key thing is, this is happening in the background. This has actually been done in one session, once a month or once every 2 months, we're getting that done, because that can go a long way. And then with an ad budget, we can kind of feed it back. So when you break down the actual material work, it's just planning on the content. That was done in a sitting. This took a bit of setup, but once it was done, it was done. And then it was just turning up on stories, showing the proof, giving client case studies, and then giving expectations and working really, really hard inside of service, which is, guess what, Luke loved doing, because he's a great coach and he's a really kind person and he's naturally empathetic. So that wasn't a problem. But again, it just took a bit of setup and structure and precision at the beginning. That was absolutely fundamental to this success. But putting this out there to show what is possible, because 10xing or over 10xing the monthly recurring revenue in as little as, well, it's under 3 months, is quite remarkable. It's, not to set expectations as a default for everyone, but this is what can happen when you do pick the right talking point, because he got such a great signal off that content, and then we really did accelerate it by reinvesting. Because to be honest, we probably would have ended up at 20k, not 52, if we didn't keep things rolling. But the point is, they were the right people coming through. They weren't just randomers. They were people with the problems and the hunger for the knowledge, and then they fitted perfectly into this content strategy that we set up from the get-go. Naturally filtered people through. So, yeah, hope that helps. Like I said, I'll put a form below. There'll be a free advice form. If it's content or if there's anything particularly strong with, fill that out. I'll give back to you. I can kind of go through and audit your profile, because everyone I want to look at, I kind of get an understanding of, okay, what does your bio say? Is it converting? 98% of people don't scroll down, so that needs to be on point. Your pin posts need to be on point. The content needs to be on point. The messaging needs to be on point with the precision. And then if that works and if it's right, you will attract clients. It's not rocket science. It's not magic. It's just accuracy of messaging and making sure you're boiling the water and the heat is on the water continually. But once you do have that, amazing things can happen. And it's not just Luke. This is a great result to kind of show the importance of getting the signal right. But I've got over 400 plus coaches have gone through this, and every single one, their situation has improved and the income has improved with clients coming through when their messaging improves. When the clarity of that improves and they have a system in place behind it, it works. It just comes down to sometimes a few things being pointed out from an outside perspective, but at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And there could just be a critical bit of information that you're missing out on that can make all the difference.